Have you ever wondered if your daily effort is truly yours? Or could it be that you work so hard, run so fast, produce so much, to save something you don't even realize you're trying to redeem? Work ennobles man. How many times have you heard that? At school, at home, on TV? That phrase was served with your breakfast toast. It wasn't an option, it was doctrine, and you believed it, because everyone around you did. Because refusing to work always sounded like a sin. And resting too much, a moral failure. But what if this morality isn't yours? What if it's inherited? A religious echo you repeat without knowing. Imagine that behind your spreadsheet, your checked-off goals, your Sunday night exhaustion. There's an invisible altar, a modern temple called productivity. And at its center, the daily sacrifice of yourself. Max Weber, a German sociologist from the early 20th century, wrote something unsettling. Professional duty is no longer just a rational choice. It has become a spiritual vocation. It's not about liking what you do. It's about feeling you must do it, that you should, that it's your mission, not because your boss said so, but because something inside you demands it. An inner judge. A silent pastor, a God disguised as a sense of responsibility. You've never thought about it this way, because no one taught you to. School didn't teach you Weber. It taught you to obey the clock and deliver results. But Weber would ask you something else. What if your sense of responsibility is actually faith, an ancient faith that crossed centuries and camouflaged itself in modern offices? Because for Weber, capitalism didn't just come from banks, machines, and markets. It was born from a spirit, an ethic, a moral belief that tied success to salvation, profit to purity, discipline to divine grace, and that belief still lives in you. When you feel guilty for resting, when you judge someone as lazy, when you measure a person's worth by their utility, when you feel you must constantly prove yourself. This video isn't about religion, it's about the spirit behind your exhaustion, about the ritual you perform without realizing it, about how the Protestant ethic shaped your sense of value, and still makes you feel dirty when you're not being useful. So before we go on, take a deep breath. If something here has already stirred something inside you, stay. Like, subscribe. Not for me. For you, because by the end, you might realize you don't work so hard for money, but for faith. You've been told you're free. Free to choose your career. Free to dream big. Free to hustle. But what if that freedom is a stage? What if the lights are fake, the applause pre-recorded and the script written long before you arrived? In modern Western culture, work is not just a necessity, it's an identity. What do you do? Is the first question strangers ask. Not who you are, not what you love, but what you produce. We were raised inside this myth. The myth that our value comes from being useful, that doing more means being more, that our worth is measurable in hours, in results, in output. And within this myth, laziness is the ultimate sin. Not a need for rest, not a sign of imbalance, but a moral failure. A stain on the soul. We don't just work to live, we live to work. It's etched into our routines, our language, our pride. Productivity is a virtue. Busyness is a badge of honor. Burnout is a status symbol disguised as a crisis. You wake up, check your phone, check your emails, your calendar. You squeeze time, like it's a resource that defines your success. Time is money, they say. But is it really? Or is that just another layer of the myth? This cultural narrative tells you that if you fail, it's because you didn't try hard enough. If you're poor, it's because you weren't disciplined. If you rest, you're wasting potential. But who benefits from this story? Who gains when you feel guilty for taking a break? When you keep proving your value over and over to systems that never feel satisfied? Max Weber saw it. He saw how Protestantism, particularly Calvinism, turned work into a sacred act, how the fear of damnation drove people to seek signs of divine favor, and how worldly success became one of those signs. Over time, that theology seeped into the bloodstream of capitalism. It no longer needed sermons or priests. It just needed culture, institutions, expectations. And now, centuries later, you no longer hear the voice of God, but the voice of performance. You think you choose to work hard. But what if it's the myth choosing for you? This isn't about blame. It's about sight. Seeing the narrative that wraps around your choices, because until you see the myth, you live inside it, you serve it, you pass it on. So ask yourself, who taught you that rest is dangerous, that free time is suspicious, that being still is lazy, and what would happen, really, if you stopped believing it? You wear no chains, you see no bars, but still, you're trapped. Not in a cell made of concrete, but in a system built from expectations, from invisible laws that whisper, do more, be more, never stop. And you obey, not out of fear, at least not the kind you can name, but out of something deeper, something internalized, the need to be seen as worthy, as disciplined, as productive. This is the prison Max Weber saw, a world where freedom was replaced by responsibility, not the healthy kind, but the spiritualized kind, where labor became not just a job, but a form of proof, a ritual, a quiet sermon to a God that no longer speaks, but always watches. You think you're playing a game of success, but you're inside a machine that rewards output and punishes stillness. A machine where slowing down feels like betrayal, where not achieving feels like disappearing. Weber called this the iron cage, a cage forged not by tyrants, but by beliefs, not imposed from above, but absorbed from within. You may not fear hell, but you fear failure. You may not seek salvation, but you seek recognition. And in this modern theology, the Holy Grail is performance, numbers, progress, endless growth. You scroll through social media and see others grinding, winning, leveling up. The pressure intensifies. Comparison becomes confession, and the algorithm becomes the new altar. No priest needed, just likes, metrics, deadlines. You see it everywhere. In the coworker who brags about not sleeping, in the student who measures self-worth by GPA, in the artist who stops creating unless it pays, in the parent who feels guilty for resting, even in your own voice, when you whisper to yourself, I should be doing more. That whisper is the sound of the cage. It's not just about work, it's about the identity tied to work, the fear of being useless, the panic of not being enough. The belief that your time only matters if it's filled with measurable effort. We don't need fences anymore. We have calendars. We don't need guards. We have shame. And every time you push through exhaustion, ignore your body, sacrifice your joy for productivity, the cage tightens. But here's the thing, cages only work when you forget they exist. So this is your mirror. This is the moment you stop pretending the hustle is natural. That burnout is just part of the path. That pressure is proof of purpose. Look closely. The cage isn't just around you, it's inside you. Max Weber didn't want to break your faith. He wanted to show you where it was hiding. He wasn't accusing anyone. He was revealing a transformation, a spiritual mutation that changed how modern humans relate to labor, identity, and meaning. In the Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism, Weber traced a strange connection, how religious devotion quietly became economic discipline, how what once was about salvation became about efficiency. In Calvinist theology, there was no guarantee of heaven, no priest to absolve you, no ritual to reassure you. So believers searched for signs, indicators that they were among the elect. And what was one of the clearest signs? Success, hard work, discipline, frugality, a relentless focus on vocation. This wasn't laziness cloaked in righteousness, it was the opposite. It was sacred anxiety, driving people to work harder, live simpler, and reinvest profits not in pleasure but in purpose. Over time, this ethic, born from spiritual hunger, became detached from its religious roots. It didn't need God anymore. The discipline survived, the pressure remained. But now it served a new master, capitalism. Weber wasn't romanticizing the past, he was naming the ghost in the machine. He saw that modern work wasn't just about economy, it was about belief. That behind the spreadsheets and schedules, there was still a sacred impulse. Prove yourself, be chosen, be good enough. This is what makes it so powerful, so invisible, so hard to resist, because when something feels moral, you don't question it, you internalize it. And so, the spiritual discipline of the Puritans became the psychological burden of the modern worker. The rituals changed, from prayer to performance. Reviews, from Sunday sermons to TED Talks, from church pews to co-working spaces. But the logic is the same. If you are productive, you are good. If you succeed, you are worthy. If you hustle hard enough, maybe, just maybe, you'll be saved. Not in the afterlife, but in the eyes of others, in your own eyes. This is the spirit Weber warned us about. A spirit so embedded in our culture that we forget it's there. A force that doesn't scream, it whispers. That doesn't punish, it persuades. And the most dangerous part? It doesn't need to be true to control you. You just have to believe it. What if the person you think you are isn't really you? What if your drive, your ambition, your sense of duty, the things you pride yourself on, are actually the system speaking through you? This is the crisis Max Weber forces us into. The moment when the mirror cracks, when you begin to ask, whose voice is this inside my head? You've built your life around certain beliefs. That discipline is good, that laziness is bad, that productivity equals value. But what if those beliefs were planted in you long before you had a choice? What if you're not being responsible but religious? Not with prayer but with pressure, not with faith but with fear. Think about the moments when you feel most anxious, when you're not achieving, when you're wasting time. When you look around and see others doing more, being more, getting ahead, and something inside you tightens. That tightening? It's not just insecurity, it's theology, a secular gospel written in numbers, not scripture, a silent creed that says, only the disciplined are saved, only the useful deserve to exist. And you believed it, not because you're weak, but because the world made it feel normal, because the rewards are real, because the punishments for slowing down are subtle, but suffocating. Now, here's the hardest question. If you stopped striving, not forever, just for a moment, who would you be? Would you still feel like a person? Would you still respect yourself? Or have you become so fused with performance that you can't separate your worth from your work? This is where the trained self, the obedient, productive, respectable self, collides with the real self, the tired self, the bored self, the curious, chaotic, messy, lazy, emotional self. The self that doesn't optimize, that doesn't monetize, that doesn't always want to grow. The system trained you to silence that part, to hide it, to feel ashamed of it. But what if that part is you? What if your real identity begins where the hustle ends? This is the crisis Weber hands us. Not to destroy your work ethic, but to expose its roots, to let you see the machine and your place inside it, and maybe to give you the courage to step out, not to quit life, but to reclaim it, not to stop being disciplined, but to stop believing you have to earn your existence. You are not a machine. You were never meant to be optimized, tracked, ranked, or quantified. You are not a spreadsheet. You are not your productivity graph. You are not your inbox, your resume, or your to-do list. You are human, and humans were not born to hustle. We were born to feel, to rest, to connect, to wonder, to create, not always for profit, but for meaning, for beauty. for the joy of it. Max Weber didn't write to make you rebel. He wrote to make you see, to peel back the layers of culture and habit and reveal the spirit hidden inside our systems. A spirit that once served faith and now serves capital. But you don't have to serve it. Not blindly, not forever. Yes, discipline can be beautiful. Yes, hard work can be noble, but not when it erases you. Not when it steals your silence, your presence, your breath. You don't have to earn your right to exist. You don't need to prove your worth through exhaustion. You don't need to hustle your way to love. The cage Weber spoke of, it's still here, but now you've seen it. And once seen, it cannot be unseen. That is the first fracture, the first light, so rest. Without guilt, play. Without purpose, exist. Without needing to justify it. You are not lazy. You are tired of pretending that burnout is a badge of honor. You are not behind. You are breaking the clock. You are not weak. You are waking up. And if something in you shifted while watching this, even just a flicker, don't keep it to yourself. Share this. Someone else is still asleep inside the machine, and maybe your courage will be their alarm clock. Let it echo. Let it crack the silence. Because when one person wakes up, the whole system starts to tremble.